Why was Filip Chytil not on the ice at the end of this game?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1215 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers coming off of a difficult 5-3 loss on the road against the Panthers. They lose for the seventh time in their last 8 games. And one of the, depending on how you look at it, either one of the more encouraging or more depressing aspects of this loss is the fact that the Rangers played one of their best games that they've played. I mean, I'm almost thinking maybe all season, but certainly within the last month, the last 6 weeks, however far you want to go back, because it's been just a nightmarish stretch of hockey. I want to say the Rangers are now like 4-15 in their last 19 games, somewhere in that ballpark. It's hard to look it up and just see how bad it really is. But you guys know, anybody that's watched this team recently, you know that things have gone poorly and nothing's going right. And this team just looks like a shell of what it was last season. But there is one thing that I got to talk about right off the top of the show here. And we're eventually going to work our way to Mika Zibanejad and his struggles. We will also take a look at some of the positives from this game. But I want to kick off today's episode by talking about a decision made by Peter Laviolette at the end of this game to somehow not include Filip Chytil on the ice when the Rangers had a 6-on-4 advantage in the closing minutes there, trying to find the equalizer, down by 1 goal, a game in which the Rangers actually showed a lot of fight, a game in which the Rangers came from behind twice to tie the game. We're never able to pull ahead, obviously, but Filip Chytil on this night was far and away the Rangers' best player on the ice. If anyone feels any differently, you go ahead and let me know, but this is one of those games I feel like you can just show it to somebody that's never watched hockey before, and they would be able to figure out that, wow, that guy looks good. Filip Chytil, he was all over the place. He was buzzing. He was shooting the puck. He was going to the net. He just looked like he wanted the puck, and he wanted to make a difference and wanted to make an impact. And obviously, he eventually broke through with a goal that got the Rangers on the scoreboard, cut the Panthers' lead to 2-1, but he was not on the ice in crunch time. Now, I'm going to pick apart this decision in just a second. I do want to first and foremost, though, I wouldn't really say foremost, but first, I want to say Peter Laviolette, he's starting to lose me a little bit. And I think for some of you, it's probably going the same way. I maintain that I think he is one of the lesser problems that this team has right now. But there are some things that have been happening recently that really make you scratch your head. I do want to give Laviolette a little bit of a break here, though, and dispel one notion that you see on social media from Ranger fans every now and then. And that is this idea that Laviolette never tries anything different or never holds anybody accountable. I don't think that's true at all. He makes some decisions that really make you scratch your head a little bit and make you wonder if he's watching the same game that you are. But in terms of not trying anything different, I just want to throw out a quick list of things that he has done over the last bunch of games here, all this Ranger losing, things that he has tried different, things that he's gone to try to get this team rolling at least a little bit. Again, you can question everything that's going on, his ability to reach these players, some of the decisions that he's made. But the idea that he hasn't tried anything new, to me, that's not even close to being true. You can start with this game right here. Mika Zibanejad finally loses his spot in the top power play unit. And like I said, we've got a lot to say about Mika. We will get there a little bit later. But they go with Lafreniere on the top power play unit. The power play looked better than it had in a while. That's going to be something else that we talk about a little bit later in this episode. But here's all the different things that he's tried. And this is just off the top of my head. I made this list in maybe like 2 minutes tops. These are different things that Peter Laviolette has tried while this team has been floundering. So you've got different line combinations. We've seen him do that quite a bit. The first line juggling is the one that they shouldn't have done. That was the one that had Mika Zibanejad move up the lineup, I suppose, to play with Panarin and Lafreniere, and that's when everything fell apart. Now, the Rangers had other problems, and probably the reckoning was coming sooner or later, but that's when everything really kind of went south, is when they mixed the line combinations that first time, and everybody just kind of, slowed down, cooled off, call it whatever you want to call it. But the bottom line is he has changed the line combinations quite a bit. He's tried just about every defense pairing that you can possibly think of. Guys moving up, guys moving down, guys into the lineup, guys out of the lineup. He has put multiple rookies into the lineup. Edstrom, Berard, Mancini. All three of those guys were not expected to make the opening night roster. And Berard obviously did not make the opening night roster, but he was up at some point to try to give this team a little bit of a spark. I think overall he's played well, for a former 5th-round rookie for sure. I would also imagine that we will eventually see Brian Offman, and that when we do, we'll see Offman in a fairly prominent role for this Ranger team. We saw Matt Rimpey into the lineup a couple of different times to wake this team up and get them going a little bit. We've seen a bunch of different players get scratched. We've seen Riley Smith get scratched, Chris Kreider get scratched, Capo Caco get scratched. Speaking of Capo Caco, when he was still here, they moved him to center. That seemed to work somewhat well. We've seen other players get benched. There was a game where they benched Panarin and Chytil. Didn't last for the whole game, but they benched the two of them. Zach Jones got benched for a mistake. Kreider was sent down to the 4th line. Mika Zibanejad was removed from the top 6 and actually stayed out of the top 6 for, a decent amount of games there. I would guess at least 3 or 4. In this game, there were the things that I just mentioned. We also saw recently Mika Zibanejad get benched for almost an entire third period. We've seen Kreider and Mika broken up at times. Now they're back together now because, of course, you always have to go back to that, right? Every coach does this. They'll break them up for a while, then they'll put them back together. But we did see them broken up for a while. We've seen Igor Shesterkin get pulled out of games. We've even seen Laviolette try some kind of quirky and fun things to try to wake this team up and get them going a little bit. Not too long ago, we had the stick graveyard at practice. Everybody got rid of their sticks and just threw them to the side of the ice. And okay, we're going to clean slate, go forward, new sticks. I mean, why not, right? Try anything if you think it can possibly make a difference. Laviolette's even rocking a mustache now, switching up the look a little bit, maybe trying to just do anything, literally anything to get this team going. Just try to change the look and the feel of this team, the vibes of this team. Nothing's working. So the idea that he hasn't tried anything different, I think, is just way off base. I don't know where people come up with that. Again, you can agree with some of these decisions that he's made. And of that list I just said there, I'm not saying that I wholeheartedly agree with every single thing that he's done, of everything that I just mentioned there, but he is trying different things. That to me is the point that I don't think can really be argued against. I mean, you guys can let me know if you feel differently, but there have obviously been a lot of things that he's done differently. One of the big things that I think people are looking for is the Mika Zibanejad healthy scratching, which, it's probably past time. It probably should have happened by now. It hasn't. We'll see if that ends up happening at one time or another. I don't think Mika really did himself any favors in this game. Like I said, we will eventually get to Mika. But then, on the other side of this whole thing, to bring everything full circle, bring it back to my original point of what he did with Filip Chytil, or rather what he did not do with Filip Chytil at the end of this game. There are certain things Laviolette does, or in this case does not do, that will drive you crazy. And in this case, it was not going to Filip Chytil. When all the chips were down, when the Rangers were down by 1 goal, when they're competing their tails off in this game, in a game where Filip Chytil is far and away their best skater on the ice, to not have him out there in crunch time, to not have him out there with a chance to do, or to come up with the equalizer, or at least have a hand in the equalizer. And that's bad enough in and of itself, but I'll repeat a point that I made a couple episodes ago, the last time that the Rangers pulled their goalie and they were looking for the equalizer and they very quickly gave up an empty net goal. The Rangers have not scored a goal with their goalie pulled the entire season. They have not been able to come up with that game-tying goal in crunch time. Not that you expect that to happen super often, but by now, with as much firepower as this team has and as much fight as they showed last season, as good as they were in that situation last season, you'd expect to have 1 or 2, right? I mean, I don't think that's completely unreasonable, but the same 6 guys are always out there when the Rangers pull their goalie, and they haven't scored a goal in that situation all season, and they haven't even really been close. In this game, they got somewhat close, a couple of opportunities, but the idea that Chytil was not on the ice is laughable. Basically, the Rangers are on the power play, a little bit less than 3 minutes to go, and they wait to win the faceoff. I like that. Let's get control of the puck first, then let's pull the goalie. Igor goes to the bench. Who jumps onto the ice? Who else would it be besides Mika Zibanejad? And the 6 players go to work, and like I said, they had some opportunities here for sure. Mika Zibanejad had a couple of chances. He went to the backhand for some reason, and then he shot wide. Panarin was trying to make some things happen, and they had some chances. You at least watch this and believe they were capable of scoring a goal in this situation. But Filip Chytil has got to be on the ice in this situation. I would argue probably Will Cooley too. I'm not going to die on that hill because you know what? I'm not going to. At this point, I realize he's not going to completely reinvent the wheel in this situation. But when you have somebody in Filip Chytil that has played as well as he played in this game, far and away the best Ranger forward. I don't think it's even close. Best Ranger skater, best Ranger player on the ice was Filip Chytil, and he's nowhere to be seen in this situation. Now, after the game, Molly Walker asked Peter Laviolette about this very thing, because Laviolette, before they even asked him, I believe, he was speaking very highly of Filip Chytil and just how well that he had played in this game. So Molly Walker asked if there was any consideration to putting Chytil on the ice in the situation that we're describing here, obviously down by a goal, and the goalie pulled looking for that equalizer. This is what Laviolette said. Yeah, there's a group that we work on things and we go over things. There's a group that's been together. So, he played well. He was supposed to be going out on the second unit, and he just never got the change with the person he was changing for. So, I get what he's saying to an extent here. To me, it's not good enough. But what he's saying here, what I kind of interpret from this is they are in a 6-on-4 situation here. And you're only going to probably spend so much time practicing that, because how often, it'll happen every once in a while, but how often really are you going to be in a 6-on-4 situation? So he wants to go with the guys, the 6 skaters that in this situation, have worked on this, have practiced this together and know what they're looking for out there. But come on, man. Like, Filip Chytil is a professional hockey player, man. Like, he's not going to go out there and just be completely lost and not know what he's doing and not know where to go and just forget how to shoot and forget how to pass and all these things. He's been your best player on the ice. And again, I go back to the point I made just a minute ago. This same 6 players here, there's this group of 6 players here on the Rangers. They've been the 6 that have been on the ice all season with the goalie pulled. They have not come through a single time. Try something else. And like I said, Laviolette has, in other aspects of the game, tried different things, done different, pushed different buttons to try to get this team going in this way or in that way. But this answer, this tactic here, to have Chytil on the ice at the end of this game was staring him right in the face, and he just didn't do it. And I know what he was talking about Chytil never getting onto the ice. We did see a line change or a partial line change. I noticed that Panarin was still out there. Guys like, I think Cooley was on the ice at that point. I want to say maybe Berard. I thought maybe I saw Edstrom. I'm trying to remember. It was kind of a blur, but I do know that Filip Chytil was not on the ice before the Panthers scored that empty net goal there. And that's obviously unfortunate because, like I said, he was the best player, deserved to be there, and just wasn't. And I really, really have to question that, because it just, that's where Ranger fans, I think Laviolette is starting to lose some of them, because it's just like, did you watch the same game that we just did? How is Filip Chytil not one of your 6 guys in that situation? So, yep, said my piece on that. In just a second, we're going to shift our attention to Mika Zibanejad, who just continues to struggle. And I'm going to talk specifically about why I think he might be more untradeable than people realize. And I'll elaborate on that, like I said, in just a minute. All right, we just want to take a second to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. It's fun to bet on players that will score a touchdown, as well as how many points each team will score. You could bet, again, on how many points a team will score, which players will score a touchdown. It's a great time. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so I keep everything rolling here. On Locked On New York Rangers, it's time to shift our attention to Mika Zibanejad, who, basically had another night to forget. This goes back to a lot of problems that the Rangers have been having this year. There's a just list of things that they don't do well, a list of things that are causing them to lose games over and over and over again. And I'm not just talking about Mika Zibanejad in and of itself. I'm talking about this inability to play a full 60 minutes. And we saw the Rangers play, I'd say, at least 50 minutes, maybe 55 minutes in this game. They competed hard. And it's not even really that they weren't competing in the first 5 or 10 minutes. It was, they were just making terrible plays, and it led directly to goals. And Mika Zibanejad was directly responsible with an awful turnover that led to the first goal. You got Igor Shesterkin making a save. The rebound's there. It goes off of the skate of Riley Smith, Lindgren off of his stick. Neither one of them really had a play, but it goes right to Mika Zibanejad. He's got his back to the Ranger blue line. And for one reason or another, he just decides to, fling a backhand pass, a blind backhand pass out of his own zone to nobody. And there was no reason to even move the puck. Like, Mika had the puck. He had possession. He could have just, circled around to his right along the boards there, taken it back behind the net, done something. Literally anything probably would have been better than what he did here. He just blindly flings a backhand pass, clearing attempt. I'm not even really sure what it was, but he goes to the backhand. and the Panthers pick off the pass, and, a couple seconds later, it's in the back of the net. The puck deflects off of Ryan Lindgren on the way there. Igor Shesterkin, he's struggled recently, but there's no goalie on the planet that's stopping this one. This took a crazy bounce, ended up in the back of the net, and obviously, not a lot of puck luck there for the Rangers, but again, they don't deserve any puck luck because they continue to make mistakes like this, and Mika Zibanejad continues to make mistakes like this. Here's the thing. I really don't like to keep piling on Mika Zibanejad because it's very, very easy to do that right now. Whether you're a fan of this team, a beat writer, a podcaster, a general watcher of hockey, it's very easy to see what Mika Zibanejad is doing and just shake your head and be in disbelief of how bad that it's really gotten. I saw today where he now has like the third worst plus minus in the entire league. And we're talking about like more than 700 skaters that have, taken part in an NHL game this season. He's third to last. It's incredible. But his play really is a continuous problem. Like there's stuff like this in every game. It's not just that he's not scoring, he's not productive offensively. I mean, if that happens, players go through slumps and you hope that somebody else can step up and pick him up in that situation. But he's just been bad in like every aspect of the game. And like a lot of people have been saying, it just doesn't seem like his heart is in it. I mean, if I'm off base here, maybe Mika cares about this more than we'll ever know. Maybe this is eating him alive. Maybe he can't sleep at night. He's just disgusted by everything that's gone on this season. And he wants nothing more than to get this thing turned around, lead the Rangers back, on a charge toward the postseason. But when you watch him play hockey, when you see the look on his face, when during play stoppages, you see the body language, you see the post-game interviews, there's nothing that would suggest that that's the case. And again, I could be wrong about that. We might all be wrong about that. Maybe Mika Zibanejad cares much more than we'll ever be able to give him credit for. But you see plays like this night in and night out, and you see some of the things that people say about him on social media. When it comes to his hockey, just his hockey play, I have yet to see what I would consider to be an unfair take on Mika Zibanejad and the way he has played hockey this season. Now, when it comes to stuff beyond that, when it comes to taking like personal shots at Mika Zibanejad or especially his family, those people need to get their heads checked. They're deranged. Some of the things that they say about like Mika's family, it's messed up, and I would never condone any of that. It's absolute garbage. And if you're one of those people, go to some other podcast. But when it comes to just his hockey play, again, Twitter, social media, talking with your friends, YouTube comment section, freaking Reddit, whatever. I have yet to see anyone who's exaggerated how poorly Mika Zibanejad has played this season. And I'm sorry, I don't have a nicer way to say it than that. I hope that he turns it around. He's been a favorite of mine. I'm sure he's been a favorite for a lot of you guys over the years. There is no defending this kind of play. There's no defending what he did on this play. Now, if he's having a good season, he's been locked in every night, and he does this randomly and it leads to a goal, it's a little more forgivable, right? Because they're not robots and they're going to make mistakes every now and then. But this is par for the course. You see Mika Zibanejad do something like this now, and you're not even surprised. You'd be more surprised if he gets through a game and doesn't do something like this. That's how bad it's gotten with Mika Zibanejad. And I hate saying all that, but that's where we're at right now. Now, I also want to mention this. The idea of Mika Zibanejad potentially being traded. It obviously could happen. There was a report from the fourth period's Dave Pagnotta. This is a clip from an article here, or a blurb from an article, whatever you want to call it. Pagnotta reported on Monday that Zibanejad would be open to waiving his no-move clause for the right environment. It is unclear, however, if the Rangers and Zibanejad have discussed which teams he would accept to move to, but that conversation could come if Drury finds the right fit. Here's my take on Mika Zibanejad getting traded. It can't be done. It's possible I end up being wrong about this. I think what's happening right now is a lot of us, and I include myself in this, with the idea of potentially trading Mika Zibanejad, there's a lot of hurdles to this, and we're all kind of focusing on what probably is the biggest hurdle, but we're not considering anything beyond that. The biggest hurdle to trading Mika Zibanejad right now is the fact that he has a full no-move clause, and that full no-move clause stays intact until 1 week before the trade deadline of the final season of his contract. So if he doesn't want to go anywhere, he doesn't have to go anywhere. And you can say what you want about Mika's play this season and, his passion, whatever you want to say about, him as a hockey player, you can do that. But I will always defend players. When they get this stuff put in their contract, and you can be mad at the Rangers for putting this in Mika's contract, but when this is in your contract, you've negotiated it. You have every possible right to use it. So if Mika doesn't want to leave, there's not really a whole lot that can be done about it. He can block any trade anywhere that he wants to. But people are fixating on that, and they seem to think that that's the only hurdle to trading Mika Zibanejad, is to somehow convince him to waive his no move clause, which obviously, again, is one thing that they would have to do if they were to trade him. People are throwing out these ideas. I'll put him on the fourth line, just scratch him until he accepts a trade. They could try that. That could get really, really ugly, even uglier than things have already been for the Rangers. We'll see. But there's other hurdles that have to be cleared here. And I don't think people are realizing how many there really are. Think about this. Okay, the full no move clause, we know about that. Would Mika waive it? Only he knows for sure. Only time is going to tell there. Other hurdles. He is making $8.5 million per season. That's a lot of salary cap space to take on for a player who's playing well, a player who can come over and potentially be the missing piece for your run to a Stanley Cup. That's still a lot of money to add. And there's teams that quite literally cannot fit Mika Zibanejad in under the salary cap right now, unless they move, some other pieces and open up some cap space. That's possible, but that's a lot of money to take on for any team, even a team that, wants to acquire an elite player, a good player. And here's the next hurdle. Let's be honest. Mika Zibanejad has not been an elite player, has not been an outstanding player this entire season, not even close. Another hurdle is the compete level that Mika Zibanejad is showing night in and night out. It's practically just not there. He just looks out to lunch out there. He's not competing as hard as a lot of his teammates. He's clearly not competing as hard as a lot of his opponents. All that's on tape, and that's basically how it's been the entire season. He'll have a good game here and there. He'll have a multi-point game every once in a while. It still does happen from time to time. He'll help on the penalty kill. All that's well and good. But when it comes to just competing, it's not there with Mika Zibanejad at the same level as it is for most players that are currently playing in the NHL. So that's another hurdle. Yeah, another hurdle here. The full no move clause that Mika would have to waive. My understanding, and I'm pretty sure about this, if he waives the no move clause for the Rangers to trade him, now he's on another team. He still has that full no move clause. So if that team somewhere down the line wants to trade Mika Zibanejad, then they're going to have one of the same problems that the Rangers currently have, the full no move clause. That's quite the hurdle to get around. So any team that acquires Mika Zibanejad, any team that trades for Mika and takes him on, they have to be very cognizant of the fact that, okay, well, he might be here for good. There might not be any moving him. If we feel like we have to move him at some point for the rest of his contract, which leads me into the final hurdle. And this might be the biggest one other than the full no move clause. Any team that trades for Mika Zibanejad right now, you've got him for another 5.5 seasons. It would be one thing if there was a contending team out there that saw Mika Zibanejad as kind of like a buy low opportunity if he was on the final year of his contract and they saw him as like we'll bring him in as a rental and hopefully he'll figure it out. And if not, it's okay. He'll just leave after the season. He's got 5 more years left on his deal after this one. So what general manager in their right mind who isn't certifiably insane is going to look at what Mika Zibanejad has done this season and say, yep, that's what we need for 5.5 seasons at $8.5 million a year. Let's go out and trade for him. Who's going to think that? Like if Mika Zibanejad was on some other team in the NHL, and let's say the Rangers were contending and they were looking to be buyers at the trade deadline, and Mika Zibanejad was doing exactly what he's doing now with a team like the San Jose Sharks, would you want the Rangers to go out and trade for Mika Zibanejad right now? At that cap hit? With his current level of play? With the fact that he has 5 more years left on his contract? I think he's untradeable. I don't see a path, even if he does waive the full no move, that you're going to be able to move this guy. Unless you would attach a heck of a lot of sweeteners. Maybe at that point you can start get some teams talking. Now, again, I acknowledge this right off the bat, and I'll say it again here. It's possible I'm completely wrong about this. I think in the NHL, it sometimes is difficult to gauge, how much interest there might be with this player or that player if they're on the trade block. And bottom line, look, there's 31 other teams. All it takes is one of them to be willing to do business and acquire Mika Zibanejad, and it also obviously requires Mika waiving his full no move clause. So maybe it's more doable than I'm realizing. But for all those reasons I just said, I look at Mika Zibanejad and I think this guy has to be one of the most completely untradeable players in this league right now. We'll see. I mean, again, he's under no obligation to waive the full no move. Maybe he's more willing to than I realize, and maybe there's teams that actually are interested. But man, $8.5 million a year for 5.5 more seasons. I don't know who would do that. You guys throw some names out there. You let me know a team that's dying to acquire Mika Zibanejad like right now. I'd be curious to see what everybody comes up with. But in just a second, going to keep everything rolling. Gonna take a look at some of the positives from this game. I'm not really big on moral victories. I just don't like them in general, especially when you've got a team that was supposed to contend for a Stanley Cup this season. But the bottom line, things were better in this game. We have to at least acknowledge it, and we will do that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. We all love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert a little bit earlier this year, Green Day and the Smashing Pumpkins at Citi Field. It was awesome. The energy and the excitement were unforgettable. And now, Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite live events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you do not have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, let's wrap things up here by talking about some of the positives from this game. Like I said, moral victories kind of just suck by their very nature. But, if things ever are going to turn around here, the Rangers have a lot of things that they need to do better. And they did do a lot of things better in this game as a whole or, individual performances. A lot of guys looked a lot better in this game than they have in a while, including Filip Chytil. Now, Chytil, I don't think has played terribly recently, but the well has kind of run dry as far as offensive production is concerned from Filip Chytil. And I just don't think that line has been as impactful recently as it has been or as it was earlier in the season. But we saw them have a nice night here. A lot of guys on that line, obviously, fighting for the puck and whatnot. Chytil, Cooley, and Berard. We saw Chytil play like an absolute beast last night. Looked like his hair was on fire. It's one of the best games that we've seen a Ranger forward play in a very long time. We saw Chytil score a goal in this game, just use that speed to his advantage. And man, Filip Chytil, when he gets going, he can absolutely fly. And it stands out even more on a team like the Rangers that right now, it's not just that they're slow or, the team speed overall is, average to below average, probably getting more toward below average at this point. They just do everything slow, it seems like. Even on the power play, the way they move the puck around, everything, they don't react quickly to things. Everything just happens very slow. So when you see Filip Chytil receive a pass in the neutral zone and fly toward the opposing team's blue line right up the center of the ice, looking like he was shot out of a cannon, it tends to stand out a little bit, and it certainly did here. But he zips right up the center of the ice, gets the blue line, gets it over to Berard on the right side. Berard takes a shot from a sharp angle here. Might have even been, shooting for a rebound there. That might have been the thought process from Berard. I mean, look, get the puck at the net, right? The Rangers have been doing a little bit better of a job of that in the last couple of games here, so that's positive to see. The save was made against Berard. Chytil comes, picks it up, stick handles right in front of the net, buries the rebound, cuts the lead to 2-1. Nice to see Filip Chytil, Brett Berard, a couple other guys. Fox looked pretty fired up after this. These guys were excited and they were into it. And that's, I was going to talk about that a little bit later. Let's talk about that right now, too. I thought, generally speaking, there was more emotion, more intensity from this team in this game. This is a very subjective thing, but I'm just going by watching guys, the chippiness went up there a couple of different times or a couple of different skirmishes. There was some raw emotion coming out of guys after some of the goals that were scored. You saw guys that just seemed a little bit more into the game. They were skating very well in this one. More interactions on the bench. I'm always looking for that. You should always be talking at least a little bit, I think. When that bench goes silent, you can tell just by looking at them that things are not going well, and this is not going to be 2 points for the Rangers at the end of this night. So that was nice to see as well. And again, very subjective, but that's just me observing the game, the game within the game, so to speak. I also think, and I've kind of been hinting at this throughout the entire episode, another positive here, this is the best the Rangers have looked in weeks. It's rough that they lost it because, you'd like to be rewarded. But, again, it goes back to the full 60-minute thing. We saw against Tampa, they started very strong, and then they fell apart. Great first period. They fell apart after that. In this game, rough first 5 or 10 minutes, and then they picked it up and went toe-to-toe with the defending Stanley Cup champions. But like I've been saying before, the full 60 minutes, you cannot afford to fall asleep at the wheel for 5 or 10 minutes against a team like this. Against really any team, other teams, maybe you can get away with it and eventually come back. The Rangers, at worst, went absolutely toe-to-toe with the Panthers. I know they've been struggling recently. I know the two back-to-back shutouts, but they're still the defending Cup champions. You figure they'll still be a team that's going to be in the mix deep into the playoffs. Rangers were right there in Florida's building, no less. And I know it tends to be a lot of Ranger fans there, but nevertheless, the Rangers went toe-to-toe with them. So other than the first 10 minutes, I don't really have a problem with really anything that the Rangers did after that. They played strong hockey after that, and it was nice to see. It was just nice to see the Rangers in a competitive hockey game where it's like, wow, these are two really good teams going back and forth and battling, and it's going to come down to like one or two plays. We might end up in overtime. Obviously, we didn't, but you get the idea. It was just nice to see the Rangers competing, looking good, playing hard, going toe-to-toe with a heavyweight opponent. This kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said, but another positive from this game, they twice came back in this game to tie it. And the Panthers are not an easy team to rally against. Once they get the lead, they go to work on the forecheck. They grind. They just wear you down. They basically, the analogy I used in the playoffs last year, and I'll use it again here, they lean on you until you fall over. That's basically what the Panthers do. They just wear you out, whether it's the Rangers or really anybody else. And once they're playing with a lead, I mean, look, any team wants to play with a lead, right? But once they have the lead, they have you right in the palm of their hands. To see the Rangers battle back a couple of times, tie it at 2-2 after being down 2-0, falling behind 3-2, coming back and tying it at 3-3 in the third period. We thought that maybe the Rangers were finally going to get their first third period come from behind win of the season. Obviously, it didn't happen, but good to see them at least fighting back. And they got to bring that into the next game, because next game is against Boston. If they go in against Boston and they just lay an egg and they look as bad as they did, before the winter break here, then it's gonna be all for naught. You got to make this count, and you got to carry this into the next game. I would also say another positive: two much maligned Rangers scored a goal in this game. Ryan Lindgren on a tip-in goal from Adam Fox. Chris Kreider, power play goal off of a feed from Panarin, and it wasn't a tip-in goal for Kreider. He was in front of the net, and he read the play very well. He left the front of the net to move into like the slot area to open up a passing lane for Panarin. Panarin found him, and Kreider just wound back, blasted, and scored. So nice to see Kreider finally getting a goal there. Nice to see him adjust, not just stand there looking for the tip in and not doing anything else. Good read by Kreider on that play. Also, the power play looked better. They were only 1 for 4, 1 for 5, I believe it was, but just more chaos. Everybody getting the puck to the net. That was obviously nice to see as well. And I would also throw out the penalty kill. They were on point all night. There were too many penalties and some that they didn't have to take, but nevertheless, I still thought they did a great job killing them off and obviously keeping the Panthers at bay there. So again, I'm not one for moral victories, but there were at least some positives in this one. So figure we can call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that's lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.